предприятия построены первые в России инновационные автомобильно-железнодорожные экопаромы и сформирована крупнейшая в мире дизель-электрическая ледокольная флотилия, которую возглавляет ледокол Виктор Черномырдин. Он способен продвигаться непрерывным ходом в сплошном ледяном поле толщиной до 2 метров и выполнять операции при толщине льда до 3 метров. Росморпорт является владельцем крупнейшего дноуглубительного флота в стране. Предприятие ежегодно обеспечивает проведение дноуглубительных работ для достижения навигационных параметров акваторий портов. Росморпорт проводит комплексные работы по развитию Волго-Каспийского морского судоходного канала в рамках глобальной задачи по обеспечению работы международного транспортного коридора север-юг. В исполнение поручения президента России о восстановлении регулярного круизного сообщения в Черноморском регионе была создана компания ООО «Черноморские круизы» и приобретен круизный лайнер «Князь Владимир». Один из приоритетов Росморпорта – подготовка кадров для морской отрасли. В России всего 6 уникальных больших парусников для обучения будущих моряков, половина из которых в ведении Росморпорта – «Мир», «Херсонес» и «Надежда». С 2015 года на них организуется плавательная практика для учащихся ведущих морских вузов России. На «Мире» реализуется проект «Экспедиция под парусами», в ходе которого любой желающий может испытать себя в море. Успешно реализуется образовательный проект «Мой порт», направленный на популяризацию профессии портового дела и поддержание морских традиций среди подрастающего поколения. Росморпорт продолжает движение вперед, уверенно внедряя в свою производственную деятельность востребованные современные и инновационные технологии. Росморпорт. Настоящее и будущее морской отрасли. 20 лет верным курсом.
Акционерное общество «Корпорация морского приборостроения» создано в соответствии с указом президента Российской Федерации от 1 апреля 2020 года номер 235 в целях совершенствования системы управления организациями морского приборостроения, сохранения и развития их научно-производственного потенциала. АО «КМП» отведена ведущая роль в создании и производстве не только важнейших средств и комплексов радиоэлектронного вооружения для кораблей ВМФ России, но и радиоэлектронного оборудования для гражданских потребителей морской техники на внутреннем и внешнем рынках. Предприятиями, входящими в группу компаний КМП, разрабатываются и производятся системы автоматизированного управления и интегрированные мостиковые системы для судов всех классов, включая атомные ледоколы, гражданские суда, суда разведки и добычи полезных ископаемых. Ведется работа по созданию необитаемых глубоководных аппаратов для научных и экологических исследований. Продукция КМП – один из признанных мировых лидеров рынка в области высокоточной инерциальной навигации, гироскопии, гравиметрии и оптико-электронных систем, гидроакустики, высокоточной геодезии, приборной техники для автономных необитаемых подводных аппаратов. Ведутся разработки в области морской геологии, поиска и добычи углеводородов. Создаются комплексы для решения задач геологоразведки и морской сейсморазведки месторождений полезных ископаемых на морском шельфе. Главная задача АО «КМП» – использовать синергетический эффект от совокупности имеющихся в объединяемых в акционерное общество предприятий компетенций для повышения эффективности производства и конкурентоспособности создаваемой продукции.
Росморпорт – ведущее предприятие морской отрасли с 2003 года. Сегодня Росморпорт представлен в 24 регионах России. Один из крупнейших работодателей в отрасли. Основная задача и миссия предприятия – обеспечение бесперебойного и безопасного мореплавания. Росморпорт создает необходимые условия для безопасного судоходства в акваториях 59 из 63 морских портов страны и на подходах к ним для сотен тысяч судов. Росморпорт активно участвует в работе по развитию и совершенствованию портовой инфраструктуры в рамках реализации комплексного плана модернизации и расширения магистральной инфраструктуры. К 2030 году мощности морских портов России должны вырасти более чем на 115 миллионов тонн, а объем собственных инвестиций в развитие портовой инфраструктуры составит свыше 19 миллиардов рублей. Уже реализованы проекты по строительству объектов федеральной собственности по всей территории страны. Удалось сформировать и собственный современный служебно-вспомогательный флот. По заказу предприятия построены первые в России инновационные автомобильно-железнодорожные экопаромы и сформирована крупнейшая в мире дизель-электрическая ледокольная флотилия, которую возглавляет ледокол Виктор Черномырдин. Он способен продвигаться непрерывным ходом в сплошном ледяном поле толщиной до 2 метров и выполнять операции при толщине льда до 3 метров. Росморпорт является владельцем крупнейшего дноуглубительного флота в стране. Предприятие ежегодно обеспечивает проведение дноуглубительных работ для достижения навигационных параметров акваторий портов. Росморпорт проводит комплексные работы по развитию Волго-Каспийского морского судоходного канала в рамках глобальной задачи по обеспечению работы международного транспортного коридора север-юг. В исполнение поручения президента России о восстановлении регулярного круизного сообщения в Черноморском регионе была создана компания ООО «Черноморские круизы» и приобретен круизный лайнер «Князь Владимир». Один из приоритетов Росморпорта – подготовка кадров для морской отрасли. В России всего 6 уникальных больших парусников для обучения будущих моряков, половина из которых в ведении Росморпорта – «Мир», «Херсонес» и «Надежда». С 2015 года на них организуется плавательная практика для учащихся ведущих морских вузов России. На «Мире» реализуется проект «Экспедиция под парусами», в ходе которого любой желающий может испытать себя в море. Успешно реализуется образовательный проект «Мой порт», направленный на популяризацию профессии портового дела и поддержание морских традиций среди подрастающего поколения. Росморпорт продолжает движение вперед, уверенно внедряя в свою производственную деятельность востребованные современные и инновационные технологии. Росморпорт. Настоящее и будущее морской отрасли. 20 лет верным курсом.
Акционерное общество «Корпорация морского приборостроения» создано в соответствии с указом президента Российской Федерации от 1 апреля 2020 года номер 235 в целях совершенствования системы управления организациями морского приборостроения, сохранения и развития их научно-производственного потенциала. АО «КМП» отведена ведущая роль в создании и производстве не только важнейших средств и комплексов радиоэлектронного вооружения для кораблей ВМФ России, но и радиоэлектронного оборудования для гражданских потребителей морской техники на внутреннем и внешнем рынках. Предприятиями, входящими в группу компаний КМП, разрабатываются и производятся системы автоматизированного управления и интегрированные мостиковые системы для судов всех классов, включая атомные ледоколы, гражданские суда, суда разведки и добычи полезных ископаемых. Ведется работа по созданию необитаемых глубоководных аппаратов для научных и экологических исследований. Продукция КМП – один из признанных мировых лидеров рынка в области высокоточной инерциальной навигации, гироскопии, гравиметрии и оптико-электронных систем, гидроакустики, высокоточной геодезии, приборной техники для автономных необитаемых подводных аппаратов. Ведутся разработки в области морской геологии, поиска и добычи углеводородов. Создаются комплексы для решения задач геологоразведки и морской сейсморазведки месторождений полезных ископаемых на морском шельфе. Главная задача АО «КМП» – использовать синергетический эффект от совокупности имеющихся в объединяемых в акционерное общество предприятий компетенций для повышения эффективности производства и конкурентоспособности создаваемой продукции.
Росморпорт – ведущее предприятие морской отрасли с 2003 года. Сегодня Росморпорт представлен в 24 регионах России. Один из крупнейших работодателей в отрасли. Основная задача и миссия предприятия – обеспечение бесперебойного и безопасного мореплавания. Росморпорт создает необходимые условия для безопасного судоходства в акваториях 59 из 63 морских портов страны и на подходах к ним для сотен тысяч судов. Росморпорт активно участвует в работе по развитию и совершенствованию портовой инфраструктуры в рамках реализации комплексного плана модернизации и расширения магистральной инфраструктуры. К 2030 году мощности морских портов России должны вырасти более чем на 115 миллионов тонн, а объем собственных инвестиций в развитие портовой инфраструктуры составит свыше 19 миллиардов рублей. Уже реализованы проекты по строительству объектов федеральной собственности по всей территории страны. Удалось сформировать и собственный современный служебно-вспомогательный флот. По заказу предприятия построены первые в России инновационные автомобильно-железнодорожные экопаромы и сформирована крупнейшая в мире дизель-электрическая ледокольная флотилия, которую возглавляет ледокол Виктор Черномырдин. Он способен продвигаться непрерывным ходом в сплошном ледяном поле толщиной до 2 метров и выполнять операции при толщине льда до 3 метров. Росморпорт является владельцем крупнейшего дноуглубительного флота в стране. Предприятие ежегодно обеспечивает проведение дноуглубительных работ для достижения навигационных параметров акваторий портов. Росморпорт проводит комплексные работы по развитию Волго-Каспийского морского судоходного канала в рамках глобальной задачи по обеспечению работы международного транспортного коридора Север-Юг. В исполнение поручения президента России о восстановлении регулярного круизного сообщения в Черноморском регионе была создана компания ООО «Черноморские круизы» и приобретен круизный лайнер «Князь Владимир». Один из приоритетов Росморпорта – подготовка кадров для морской отрасли. В России всего 6 уникальных больших парусников для обучения будущих моряков, половина из которых в ведении Росморпорта. Мир, Херсонес и Надежда. С 2015 года на них организуется плавательная практика для учащихся ведущих морских вузов России. На Мире реализуется проект «Экспедиция под парусами», в ходе которого любой желающий может испытать себя в море. Успешно реализуется образовательный проект «Мой порт», направленный на популяризацию профессии портового дела и поддержание морских традиций среди подрастающего поколения. Росморпорт продолжает движение вперед, уверенно внедряя в свою производственную деятельность востребованные современные и инновационные технологии. Росморпорт. Настоящее и будущее морской отрасли. 20 лет верным курсом.
Международная обстановка, сложившаяся в 2022 году, значительным образом поменяла морскую логистику, поставив судоходные компании, порты и грузовладельцев перед необходимостью перестраивать привычные логистические цепочки. Судостроительная отрасль оказалась в ситуации, когда требуется ускоренными темпами не только замещать критически важное оборудование, но и увеличивать скорость постройки судов, модернизировать и создавать производственные мощности. Однако время больших рисков может стать и периодом для поступательного движения, укрепления собственного рынка морских перевозок, достижения технологического суверенитета в промышленности и формирования новых партнерских связей. В ходе пленарного заседания ключевые участники морской отрасли спустя 1,5 года работы в новой реальности расскажут, как Россия преодолевает существующие ограничения, а какие вопросы еще предстоит решить, и представят приоритетные цели развития на годы вперед.
Добрый день, дорогие друзья.
Distinguished guests, dear friends, I'm happy to welcome you. Let's give a round of applause. It's my great pleasure to open our plenary session, the Russian maritime industry, new priorities and global challenges. It is indeed great to see how much we are intertwined with one another. We are so much happy to see these innovative projects being embedded in these uneasy times. I would like to give the floor to our participants, and I would like to invite our participants, Viktor Yevtunov, State Secretary, Deputy Minister of Industry and Trade of the Russian Federation. Alexander Poshevai, Deputy Minister of Transport of the Russian Federation. Vyacheslav Ruksha, Deputy Director General, Director of the Northern Sea Route of the State Atomic Energy Corporation, Rosatom. Igor Tonkovidov, General Director, Chairman of the Management Board of the Public Joint Stock Company, Sovcom Flot, Chairman of the Council of the Russian Chamber of Shipping, Andrei Buzinov, First Deputy Director General of JSC-USC, Andrei Severilov, Chairman of the Board of Directors of PJCS DVMP, and Michael Alexandrov, Director General of the JSC Shipbuilding Technology Center and Ship Repair Technology Center. Deputy Minister of Transportation of the Russian Federation, Alexander Poshevai, the floor is yours, Your Excellency. Well, dear friends, you know that it's very well clear that today, amid the turbulence that is there, has risen up new challenges. Quite often we say that humans get used to everything within 6 months. What would be your take on that? I used to talk to my colleagues before coming to this exhibition, and I also communicated with representatives of the industry. And the amount of workload that is there is just tremendous. I'm just stupefied as that. You know, if you come to some shipbuilding company and you tell them, I want to have a vessel constructed by tomorrow, and no matter how much money you offer, no one is going to do that for you. The best answer you're going to be given is, well, probably in 5 years we would be able to provide you with a vessel. So today, what we are doing is indeed beyond of this world. The time that has passed since February 2022 was quite enough for us to get used to the situation and to find solutions. On the other hand, there is some perception that you have to run very fast to stay put at the same place. I would like to start a quick Q&A session. I would like everyone to provide a 1-minute answer to the following question. If we talk about the adaptation that I mentioned, what are the challenges in 18 months that are the most relevant? Victor, I would like you to start and to be first. Well, 18 months, it's too short of a time. I believe that the challenges that we are facing now are the most relevant ones, and all of them are related to the geopolitical situation. Definitely, this is the development of our two transport corridors, the Northern Sea route, one among them. And we see that the amount of shipment along these routes is being forecasted. And today these routes are indeed overloaded versus what we saw a year or 2 years ago. The next challenge is domestic manufacturing and substitution of the most critical components. Today, we were very much satisfied and happy to see that our engineers, our technologies and companies are actively working down these roads. And we see that lots of companies are suggesting import substitution items of different performance. We saw engine of Russian manufacturer, and I appreciate this indeed. And next, this is the revamping of our shipbuilding capacities. Regrettably, today, our shipbuilding capacities are still lagging behind, and the equipment is quite outdated. Therefore, we should start from lean management, which is indeed of tremendous importance. I believe that the most important thing is to ensure lifelong learning, to enhance professionalism of our workers. And therefore, we cooperate jointly with the lead universities in shipbuilding and across other sectors of industry. And the technological revamping, naturally, we cannot do that in 18 months, but we should dive into that today, and the earlier the better. Thank you very much. Very soon I'm going to give the floor back to you, and I'm going to ask you to say a few words about your efforts. What do you do? But first, let's talk about challenges. Alexandra, next to you. Thank you. Well, speaking about adaptation to the new realities, well, the Ministry of Transportation believes that the situation has already stabilized, almost, and the cargo turnover has grown up. Last year we had 840,000 tons, which is over the last year, more than the last year, and this year for over the past months, we are having an incremental growth of 9%. The capacities are already growing. Last year we added 36.6 million tons, and this year we expect a similar growth as well. As for, well, other matters, some of our projects were shifted, so the deadlines were shifted a little bit, but none of the projects was shut down, and that's great. As for the, well, cargo flows, the situation is really important when the European Union has shut down all the sea routes and our vessels were not allowed to enter European ports. Yes, of course, it was a shock. It was a huge challenge. On March the 4th, the Minister of Transportation organized specific headquarters and task forces, and we met each other every day. But then we stopped our meetings because we had to act. We had to act immediately. So far, we have one task force on logistics, and this task force is having its regular meetings. But now we have shut down its activities because actually we don't need it. The situation has stabilized. And I'm really happy that we were able to pull ourselves together and we were able to find all the necessary industrial and administrative resources. Businesses behaved greatly. They just responded immediately to the new information, and the cargo flows were reoriented and reshaped towards the Russian Far East. Regrettably, there the infrastructure was initially a little bit overloaded, but now the situation is stabilized and everything is going well according to the schedule, and all the seaports are now back to normal. If we used to have the overload by 116%, today the overload is some 67%. Well, Alexander, do not spill the milk right away. So I just wanted you to mention a few challenges. So those are routes and partners, right? So to put it shortly, yes, indeed. I mean, those are the external challenges. Our internal challenges are our seaports, and everything is going well here. And the cargo turnover is also back to normal. Thank you.
Vyacheslav,
Vyacheslav Vladimirovich, over to you. 1 minute. Please, 1 minute about the challenges and then more details. I'm almost a ship owner. I own icebreakers. Esteemed moderator, we construct vessels, and Russia has no more ship owners. That's the big issue. Without Russian ship owners, Russian shipbuilding industry won't exist. So please fix the finance and the financing system. 13% interest rate, central interest rate, plus the margin of the bank. It's not possible to construct anything. When you started talking about ship owners, I remember the well-known Soviet movie about a ship owner. Igor, over to you. You did a great parallel. It's drama and after drama. Through the entire Russian history, commercial fleet played a crucial role in order to guarantee the foreign trade of the country. Therefore, the fleet was put among the first under different limitations. And the fleet right now operates in very difficult conditions, completing very important mission for the country. Okay, we're gonna go deeper into details a bit later. Andrew? Previous speakers mentioned everything, and I follow his priority. The first challenge about the necessity to identify transport routes, it's a load factor. You made a joke in the beginning. If you want something, please come back in 5 years. It's not a joke. The current utilization rate is almost on its maximum level. I won't even repeat questions about shipbuilding industry. There's another challenge that hasn't been voiced yet. We understand that we won't be able to substitute all foreign equipment tomorrow. So it's a huge challenge to reorient towards our oriental partners like Turkey and China. It's a separate track, and I welcome our foreign partners here. We want to cooperate with them, with the countries, with their industries. Andrew, what about challenges? Key challenges that existed in 2022 when the navigation systems were switched off and when insurance services were not available. We solved those issues already. We efficiently increased our fleet. 10 container carriers, new container carriers are commissioned every year. So the main challenge now is where to find goods to transport. And we don't have transit opportunities because of the disconnection of hemispheres. And our key partner says our limit. So we need to go over to the new markets, and we start to cooperate with the relevant stakeholders in order to find goods. I've been in Vladivostok in August, and I was shown ships waiting for 2 weeks in order to enter the port. It was not our port, it was next to it. Mikhail Alexandrov, since I'm the last to hit the floor, I would like just to add something on top of that. Of course, the independence from import remains the main challenge, because we have very good design schools, we have industrial companies ready to contract, and these challenges are not new. These questions arrived before 2014. Many competences, as Mr. Yevtukhov said, we had a lot of foreign technology, sometimes or Eastern, more often Western technologies, but we need to substitute main components. They need to be manufactured in Russia. Thank you very much. You described an overall pattern. And if I may ask Mr. Yevtukhov to chip in and describe the governmental position. The first gas carrier arrived to China from Leningradskaya Oblast, 124 billions. I see a lot of impressive figures, but anyway, over to you. It's a good thing that the first gas carrier arrived from St. Petersburg to China. This illustrates the fact that Gazprom has first gas carrier, and for Ust-Luga they will need 20-ish gas carriers of this kind. Talking about Novatek, for instance, they have 15 already. They have contracted 15 with Zvezda. First five will be finished, regardless of the fact that our Korean partners declined their participation in the last 10 gas carriers. And for SPG1 and SPG3, we will have 40-ish gas carriers. We can construct them only at Zvezda, but Zvezda isn't ready when they will launch every workshop. It will handle 300,000 tons of metals. Zvezda is a big shipyard, ultra-modern, and when they talk whether we will be able to construct the fleet for the Northern Sea route, Zvezda, in order to become profitable, they need to construct 170 vessels. The shipyard is ready to accept orders, but first those orders should exist. Second, we need to come up with equipment in order to construct those ships, and if possible to cooperate with our partners from the countries with which we continue mutually beneficial cooperation. It's clear that recently we keep talking about two major corridors, and we will need to first free our capacities and then lower our capacities. When you said come in 5 years, but we need to understand that shipyards are not respecting the deadline. This is why they are overburdened. We need to be realistic. The majority of orders are not delivered in time, +1, +2, +3 years. And if we're talking the United Shipbuilding Corporation, they work with the Navy. So first and foremost, they need to respect the deadline. But all shipyards should diversify their job and construct a commercial fleet as well. As far as the corridor north to south is concerned, and overall sea goods turnover is not excessive, like 80 million tons, and overall Caspian turnover is 6 million tons. It's going to be 8 by 2060. To construct 50 gas carriers is not a big deal, but take into account all changes. We have not only India, we have Iraq, we have other countries along the route. So we can think of 20 million tons by 2030. Mr. Belousov has talked about 60 million tons. And we have even this Soviet project to construct port infrastructure at the Caspian Sea. So we'll have to have much more river-ocean vessels. So we are not standing still. We have no leasing program with good interest rate, with the central interest rate 13%. How to compete against Chinese and Turkish counterparts? It's a big question. Therefore, leasing programs, yes. 34 RSD 59 were constructed, more than 40 vessels according to the leasing program, plus we have Project 108 of container carriers is in high demand. It will be constructed, four contracted at Lotus, and 20 more are in the pipeline, which means we roughly understand what we need to do to guarantee this part of the job. Plus, this serious management company is present that is defining all logistical routes on the Caspian Sea. And I hope that the work will be orchestrated correctly. We have several shipyards that are ready to be contracted. Many of them have necessary competences. Second important question is how to guarantee the Northern Sea route, together with safety vessels, icebreakers. We need to have 130 ships in the pipeline. 40 are being constructed as we speak, or at least contracted, and passes through different stages of their building. Colleagues who are in charge of the Northern Sea route, I mean Rosatom Corporation, they understand the exact number of icebreakers required. We have 3 icebreakers available right now, but since old vessels will be decommissioned and Rosmarport icebreakers will be decommissioned, 220 icebreakers need to be replenished. I saw 20 icebreakers necessary. Wait, let me explain. 10 220 plus the avant-garde icebreaker because of the Eastern Siberian Sea. For the leader, after the first one, we will need to have 2 in series, plus we have 4 non-nuclear icebreakers that should be constructed. And something else, if I'm not wrong, actually, we need 18 icebreakers in order to handle all goods that are planned. Because we planned, if I'm not wrong, 220 million tons by 2025. And we wanted to have 150 for 2030, and we already have 190. It's a good corridor. It cuts costs, it's shorter, it's faster with no piracy, it's more environmentally friendly, it's more cost effective. This is why the task that the shipbuilding industry faces is very serious. And of course, board equipment almost for all ships. For military vessels, we never had a dependency from unfriendly straits, but for civil, for commercial fleet, a big work should be performed. We started it many years ago, but it has been activated last year, taking into account the subvention that has been given. 3 participants are engaged in this activity, and some presented final or intermediate results for large or for small vessels with different purposes, with different types. This job is being performed, and we received a lot of applications from shipbuilders, from design institutes. So from 90 new applications, we picked 40, and we will ask for money from the government, because in order to perform R&D, we should always think in the paradigm of PPP, and the public part should be bigger. Well, I think that we will achieve this goal. There are other serious challenges like diesel engines, low RPM. It's a heavy engine. Almost an independent factory should be constructed, or find an existing plant with large floor capacities, because this engine is huge. Initially, we rejected this idea because the deadline is long. It requires time, it requires money, but we came back to this initiative and we tried to figure out. Now we work with, we negotiate with a partner from China, and we tend to give it a more active thought. So this is our homework, and we need to execute it. This will really have a breakthrough. Only Wärtsilä in China are capable of manufacturing low RPM diesel engines. Those are the main issues that or challenges that I wanted to mention. Okay, what about ship repair? For ship repairing companies, we provided a tax waiver. They won't pay taxes, but they will have to invest the money in the upgrade of their production capacities. We need to have 2 ship repair yards in Murmansk and or in Arkhangelsk, and we need a serious ship repair plant in the Russian Far East. The Ministry of Finance understands the importance of this progress, so the Ministry of Finance backed this tax exemption. I hope that the ship repair industry will be developing.
Спасибо.
Thank you so much. Much appreciated. Well, today we are also going to address our distinguished audience. Now I would like to have the QR code on our screen because we've got a survey what Victor spoke about, what types of vessels do we need. And this is our first question. What types of vessels is Russia going to need the most in the near 5 years to come? There are icebreakers, tugboats, tankers, whatever, transportation vessels, cargo vessels. Please vote on our Telegram channel, and a little bit later we are going to demonstrate the survey results, the voting results, and I'm going to ask our experts to comment. I would like to introduce some of our experts who are in the first row. Those are the experts who are going to talk about the new routes, the Trans-Caspian route, and I believe that this route is going to play the key role. Please, the floor is yours. I'm going to support what Victor said, and today this allows us to use Iran to carry cargo, and considering that the specific economic zone of Russia, we can achieve the turnover of cargo of up to 2.5 million tons. This allows us to redistribute our capacities and to construct new capacities. We should stay focused on that so as to ensure intermittent flow of cargo to the central Russia, to Asia, to Latin America. Well, we did some assessments. In order to deliver 20 million tons, we need to have 80 container ships. And today, shipment and delivery by sea is our key focus. On top of that, we need some kind of 150 container vessels. So you see that the demands are really high, and I see every potential to deliver on that. On top of that, we can also ensure transit via Iran using new transportation routes. And to this end, we have also established a joint venture with Iran. It's a Russian-Iranian joint venture. As for the infrastructure, well, in 2019, Iran was able to carry somewhat like 480 million tons of cargo by sea or by rail. And again, as said, we need to continue working according to our cargo types, and we should eliminate various administrative obstacles and barriers. Yeah, that's right. Thank you so much. I'm so grateful for your contribution. We are talking a lot about routes, and considering that St. Petersburg a few years ago has become the kind of a window to the Arctic. So when this window was shut down, we decided to go northwards. Well, clear that this is the Northern Sea route. Alexander, I just wanted to address you. I'm very happy that the ministry is together with us. What's your take on these new routes? What do you think about the regulation of these new processes? Please, the floor is yours, Your Excellency. Well, your question is exactly regarding the Northern Sea route. Well, I think I'm not the best person to respond about that, well, because here we have colleagues who are dedicated more into that. However, I should highlight that we need solutions and we need to increase our competencies. For example, we delegated Rosatom to enhance their competences and to do what was planned to do, but in the shortest time possible. As for safety, well, safety is still the competence of the Ministry of Transportation. And on top of that, there are lots of other services that are being shaped now by the managing cooperation of the Northern Sea route. On top of that, well, I may mention that there are going to be some deviations to the left, but still the Northern Sea route is still operating. Well, as for the South-North corridor, this topic is the intensive focus of the Ministry of Transportation. And today, all of the solutions that we are having and that our engineers offer are there. And once again, we need a dynamic development of this process. As for the Caspian Sea route, well, as of this year, it is going to ensure navigation of vessels of up to 4.5 meters. Last year, we fulfilled all our plans for 2.5 size vessels, and this means that the range of cargoes that can be carried via this route has increased. Today, we've got huge plans for the development of the Makhachkala seaport, and we are now developing the Volga and Caspian Shipment Sea Company. And today, our targets are to increase its capacities up to 2 million. So the barriers and the obstacles that we used to have, those would be eliminated all. We are also intensively cooperating with the government. And first and foremost, our key focus is food, mineral cargoes, containers, and in the future, we would like to increase our capacities and performance. As for the north-south corridor, it communicates with the Amur region and its navigation route, and we are now expanding these capacities. We're using minor vessels, we're using large-scale vessels, and we are trying to benefit from the seaports of the Russia-friendly countries. So we are doing our job very well. Currently, today, the incremental growth in seaport performance is 1.41 million tons. This sometimes, of course, entails an overload. And the terminals are going to expand the list of services so as to cover the cargoes that follow specific destinations. As for mineral fertilizers, we are now constructing a terminal for ammonium in the Black Sea, because so far we are now just cut off from any possibilities to deliver or ship ammonium. And therefore, we are going to have a specific ammonium dedicated terminal in the Taman region. We are also increasing the seaports in the northwest, including for fertilizers, mineral fertilizers. And thus we have increased our capacities, we have increased the indicators. By offering the reorientation of the cargo flows, we see that so far we can identify extra capacities that we can rely on in the future. We hope that in the near future we are going to see ever more growth and we are going to eliminate all the obstacles. I believe that the next year to come, our indicators are going to be even greater. Well, again, talking about other things, we cannot but forget the land routes, because although those were not our priority in the past, but today the structure has changed. And therefore, we are now extensively focused on internal waterways, 116 million tons. This is what we have for the last year, and I believe that we are going to have more this year and the next year. Here, a lot depends on the activities of the Sefmore float, and a lot is also dependent on the authorities' rules and regulations. And today we have just two things of indeed a historical scale. Those are the Bogaisk construction and the Krainsk cargo hub construction. Regrettably, these ideas were not implemented in life. However, I believe that in the near future, we will be able to implement these projects. We believe that at the very beginning of the navigation time, we would be able to have these capacities in a full-fledged operating mode. Well, at least there is an incremental growth in cargo turnover to be expected, and it would be delivered on. So here, the ship owners, those who received the confirmation, is going to plan its operation. And they expect that the Sefmore float is going to adopt some portion of capacities. Well, again, as I said, all that is on the way. We should stay domestically focused, although this might be a little bit costly. And naturally, we must preserve what we already have. The Western sanctions are now demonstrating their repercussions. So we have to move on. We have to develop Russian fleet under Russian flag, and that's very important. We also are to develop insurance services, considering that the international insurance companies have now stopped insuring the cargo moving from or destined to Russia. And still we have zero result there. There is no progress because the response is negative, and it is just a drag on all that, so we should not wait. And we are going to provide our adequate response. Our insurance companies are doing well, and the situation is healthy. We can cooperate with Russia-friendly countries. So the field for work is indeed extensive. Well, if you said thank you, that means that's enough, right? I just wanted to wrap up that the meeting that took place in July this year and was supported by the President of Russia, it was devoted to the future of the Northern Sea route, and the Russian President delegated us with a very specific task on how to develop the Northern Sea route. And we had to identify the tools to implement this task and to increase the demand from our regions in different types of vessels that we're going to provide. All that is on the way already. Thank you. Yes, thank you. You're welcome. Thank you so much. Right. I just wanted to ask a question to Alexander. Yeah, sure. Yeah, but we have not arranged that. That's true. Alexander. Well, as for the internal waterways, 108159 RSC 80, all those fit into the Northern Sea route. For us, the internal sea route shipment has been in stagnation for many years. And this happened due to the fact that if the rail was just running very much close to the waterway, then the cargo was rechanneled for delivery by rail. But I believe that this is not going to be possible today. And quite often we see situations when the infrastructure was ruptured in this respect. What do you think about that? Well, this issue has been recently discussed. What you mentioned regarding the seasonal allowance, including the allowance by the Russian railway, because Russian railway companies never idle. All this story initially started from the fact that we had a few major competitors. Therefore, I believe that it would be counterproductive in following this direction. As for the Russian railway, those are always ready to enter into some agreements on how to regulate cargo flow. And the transport economic balance, as it says in the last presentation, in the last speech, is very important. So we are actively working on this issue. We are establishing a system that is going to work. But what we're having on our agenda naturally covers cargo transportation by rail and by road. So today we are now looking forward to rechannel these cargo flows to waterways, especially in the most hottest seasons, in the most populated seasons, when the demand is the highest. However, today, we have all the views collected. We know what the rail people say. We know what the drivers say. And we have to do all the calculations. We have to weigh all the arguments against one another in order to come up with solutions that are going to fit everyone.
We will work on that, that's for sure. Thank you. Thank you very much indeed. It's interesting. It's always a kind thing when ministers agree here. Could you please project the results of the vote when we asked about the types of ships? I would like to ask Mr. Buzinov to comment on that, and Mr. Rukshe as well. What do we have on top? Number one, tankers, 24%. Question was, what would be the type of ship in highest demand in Russia for the next 5 years? Tankers, 25%, 23% goods carrier, universal goods carrier, and 13 container carriers. On the fourth place, icebreakers, and then technical fleet, and so on and so forth. 1 minute for the comment, Mr. Buzinov. Could you please comment on the results? This poll shows really the comment market. Statistically, it's confirmed for structures of our commands in the portfolio. I see that Mr. Rukshe doesn't agree. He doesn't agree because he knows the cost of the icebreaker. It's difficult to comment the results. This is the way our audience sees the market. It's not wrong. Mr. Rukshe, over to you. I know that you have a presentation. We will put it on the screen. To everyone in the room, Alexander Ivanovich said that we have 800,000 goods handled through seaports, and the export is 700 plus. Answering your previous question, we are servants of our goods owners. Seafarers should transport that. Shipbuilders should construct the right ship with the right price tag. Why I'm showing the Arctic zone? Alexander III wanted to develop the Northern Europe, but didn't do that. If we take a further look, in the current situation, our main route goes to Asia. It means changing routes. It means changing tasks. Remember, 2 northern streams exploded. Talking about our tasks, I can file a complaint against the Russian railroad. By 2030, they need to carry 235 million tons of cargo. But I would like to show, since we are servants of the exports, the SPG, the government decided to export 150 plus tons, and the main sanctions, they aim at the construction of gas carriers. Without gas carriers, the Northern Europe infrastructure won't exist because it stays a route. So answering your previous question, a good analysis of export brings challenges and tasks for the shipbuilding industry. I'll be talking about tankers, gas carriers, bulk carriers, and after that, container carriers. Because this big cargo turnover between us and China, where is the Far Eastern Maritime? You are buying two little bulk ships, and they can work between China and St. Petersburg. But I remember this cartoon. How are we going to measure this snake? It is so long if we measure it in parrots, and it's much shorter if we measure it in in elephants. 5,000 sheep multiplied by 2 is 100,000 for a gas carrier. Priorities and tasks for the ship constructors. I come back to our seafarer. Mr. Tankovidov is not as active as now. But otherwise, we had this. We will face the same issue as Iran faced in 1952, when tankers were banned from Iran ports to transport crude oil. So I think shipbuilders and their cooperation, working with the Krylov Scientific Center, that they need to upgrade electric propulsion and 3 new icebreakers over 10 years, it's a good result. But should we have 30 gas carriers during next 10 months, I will stand on my knees in front of the EU. That's for sure. I wish good health for the shipbuilding industry, or otherwise it will be too late. Either we solve those tasks in the next 5 to 10 years, or we wouldn't be able to satisfy economical requirements. Yes, in case of 30 vessels, we will be on our knees in front of Session. That's for sure that we don't have the second big tonnage platform. Zvezda will have 10-15 tankers for Vostok oil. I don't know, large cargo carrier, ARC-7, gas carrier. Zvezda right now has contracts large enough for the next 10 to 15 years. We need to give the floor to Zvezda. Colleagues are from here. Otherwise, Ruksha defined 15 ships. They are ready to build 15 at the same time. Do we have guys from Zvezda? No. Tseluka is not here. It's empty. Tseluka is not an empty spot, but the spot where Tseluka should be is here. Yeah. That's a difficult note. Dear moderator, last remark. Of course, as in our diesel icebreakers, when they need 40 to 50 megawatts to break the Kara Sea, there's a big discrepancy between deadlines and price tag. We need to seriously rearm all shipbuilding capacities of Russia. Okay, Vyacheslav, thank you for your introduction. I would like your talk about the Northern Sea route to be added by Alexander Makarov. Please give the floor to Alexander Makarov, Director of Arctic and Antarctic Research Institute. But in order not our plans to be the fantasy, what's going to happen with the climate in the next 10 years? This like 12-month navigation, couple of minutes. Thank you. There are different scenarios for climate change, but we'll keep talking about differences in terms of ice situation in summer. Summer means 8 to 10 months. Talking about all year-round navigation, it's not gonna impact. We will still we will still need icebreakers for the majority of the year because this zone will be covered with ice. Nothing is linear, and during several years we tend to have difficult situations, especially in the eastern part. It's a challenge not for the shipbuilder to guarantee the eastern part with a 12-month navigation, because those tasks have never been solved yet. Though join our efforts, we probably be able to solve this task. Thank you. So we need icebreakers, that's for sure. Oh, yes, please. Thank you, Roman. Very interesting discussion, by the way. But I would like to add some sort of the systematic approach to it. If we talk about the fleet and the shipbuilding, they are interconnected. As a country, we have internal transport requirements that are successfully solved by the river sea fleet and by shipbuilding companies that remain and that keep working successfully. And combined with international transport, when we talk about large cargo carriers, though this pole was useless in a way, because when we see the expert structure, it answers you directly on the question what ships are and will be in high demand. Since Russian export is guaranteed, or rather is guaranteed by the Russian fleet for more than 10%, the relevance of the issue is undoubtful. To achieve these millions of tons of cargo turnover, we need large carriers. And specifically, this relates to the Northern Sea route. Only specifically designed and specifically constructed ships can operate along the Northern Sea route. Icebreaker is only a support tool. Icebreakers don't transport goods. And under these circumstances, shipbuilders face this dramatic challenge, because if we talk in figures, on the Northern Sea route, we have goods that are born in this area. They are not transit goods. And we can transport 1 million tons, roughly. In order to have 100 million tons transported, you can do the math yourself, how many ships are required. The overall Russian Sea community look with hope at our shipbuilders, and we pray them to successfully and in time accomplish their mission to increase dramatically the number of manufactured vessels. If we take a different look at it and we forget for a second the Northern Sea route and related key competences, and Russia is proud of it. And if we take a look at the open water, talking about the same disbalance, there is a clear domination of the international fleet in our activities. For the last 18 months, the model of the transportation didn't change. Whether it will sustain the test of time, we'll see. But there's one golden rule: the goods pay for everything. And in order for the shipbuilding industry to develop, and their primary clients are Russian ship owners, the goods should be married with the ships, with their displacement. Unfortunately, in the country, we don't have a mechanism to rule on the priority of the Russian fleet as far as the direct competition with international fleet is concerned. And when shipbuilders say we need to have more time, we need to have more money, but there should be a sort of regulatory mechanism that would launch this natural economic cycle, which means a Russian ship owner transports its goods on its own ship, and from the profit it orders ships from the Russian ship yard, and the shipyard buys components and metals from the Russian suppliers. It's an ideal word, and I'm not illusioned. Well, the market won't be enough. We need something else. Yes, the market won't regulate that on its own, specifically amid the conditions that I started with. The fleet became the first aim for sanctions and different restrictions. We work in an uneven conditions in terms of accessibility of spare parts, components, materials, insurance that has been just mentioned. So should this mechanism, and the draft legislation exists, and it's been here for 18 months on different levels, and it faces active resistance. So should this draft legislation become law, for many, for the market it would be much easier. What draft legislation are you talking about? It's an addendum to the Code of Commercial to the commercial fleet. It's the first-hand rule for the Russian ship owner amid fair competition. It doesn't give him the right to use it. So if you have a cargo and you have a foreign ship and a local ship, a local ship, a Russian ship, should be used first. It's logic. From the Russian values, from the economic value, the country needs to protect, Russia needs to protect its interests amid the current circumstances, so it's logic. Sovcomflot will wave the flag on every tanker. When I talk about Russian fleet, I'm talking about the fleet that is being controlled by the Russian ship owners. The flag, I envy you. You don't navigate farther than the Russian sea route, not in the piracy infested areas. And we are working in different jurisdictions. This is why the flag defines the possibility to trade. It's a service for the cargo owner. And it's not. This question is not about the flag. The question is about the controlling interests. Alexander, maybe you'll be able to comment on that, Mr. Pashevai, because this question goes to Moscow, apparently. Okay. So my comment would be very simple. We are supporting heavily the position of Mr. Tonkovidov. For sure, we think that the future Russian sovereignty should be defined by the Russian flag attached to the Russian goods, but every rule has an exception. The market that should regulate itself doesn't exist in Russia. It's vice versa. We are working into the anti-market conditions. We are within the force majeure situation for everyone, not only for ship owners, but for goods owners as well. So this draft legislation is being worked on, and we are discussing with the goods owners because they need to make money today, not tomorrow, today. And in order not to make harm to our goods owners, we need to find this form, this language for the transition period that we see now for 1.5, 2 years, when we need to formulate the way how to find the exit from this difficult situation. Coming back to your question, we second the position of Sovcomflot, Russian Maritime Chamber. This is the main factor of our sovereignty, but we need to have this transition period in order not to harm other industries.
Thank you so much. As of March 1, 2026, we are going to do that by way of the vessels that are in conformity with the requirements of the organization, and those are going to be constructed as of March 1, 2026. Those that have been constructed before that, well, they would go on navigation, but as of March 1, 2026, so we're going to have new standards in terms of shipbuilding, and this is what we used to have in the Soviet Russia. Sometimes they tell us that, well, your construction, your shipbuilding is too costly. Yes, indeed, but amid current realities, I believe that it might be a little bit challenging for the government to invest too much into shipbuilding. But anyway, we used to follow the guidelines and the regulations of the WTO. Now we have turned a cold shoulder on the WTO, and we don't care. All countries always, including those who were at the very beginning of the GATT, they have always been into protectionism. Americans, UK, Korea, Japan, everyone, all Europe, all Asia, it has always been like that, and we have to survive amid these contradictory conditions. And if we fail, we are not going to have our domestic shipbuilding, we are not going to have our domestic aircraft building, nothing. Well, Sergei has just came here, and he's ready to reply. He's going to provide his responses for Zvezda. So how much is left still? 15 tankers, but I think you can construct 17. Oh, no, but not in this millennium, probably the next one. Yes, indeed. We are today facing lots of challenges, and the main challenge is heavy tonnage construction. And our key client is the Sovcomflot, and the gas carriers and their construction and building is still a very relevant issue. And if we are commissioned, we would be able to provide such vessels with a biofuel engine. We need vessels for Sovcomflot, for Rosneft Flot, and so on and so forth. It is not by chance that we are tapping this issue within the framework of the plenary session, jointly with Novatek and Gazprom. Today we are running also tests, and I think you don't know about that. Is that confidential or not? Well, overall, we are ready. We've got all the capacities, but spare parts are the key issue. Now, Sergei, the question was a different one. it looks like you were not very much into our discussion because you are not seated in your seat. We do have engines. We do have all other spare parts. We have lifting equipment. We have pumps. We have membranes. Everything is there for tankers and liquefied gas. But can you provide us with 150, 200 vessels? Can you construct by next year 176 vessels or not? I'm sorry, by 2030, we should ship 50 million tons of crude oil and minimum 60 million tons of liquefied gas. To be able to deliver on that, we have to calculate the number of tankers and gas carriers, how much we need. We've got it all on paper. Nothing is lost. So you are accountable for what you're saying. All right, Vyacheslav wanted to bend his knees. But, well, that's Rosatom. They don't have that as well.
Нужны некоторые условия. Спасибо. Хорошо.
Well, that's at least good that you understand each other. Well, it's their issue now. It's not our issue, not our responsibility now. Let's wrap up with that. What can you say about the Russian ferry, Far East Ferry Company? Well, our company, FESCO, is doing great in terms of logistics, and I believe that it's hardly the time to look at the survey results because there is a huge demand to operate along the Northern Sea route once it is launched in its full-fledged capacity. However, buying vessels to navigate in warmer waters, I mean container vessels, is not reasonable. Another issue is that indeed inland shipment or river shipment or the shipment operations in the Volga-Caspian basin, I think that we should still operate the Russian fleet, because at the beginning of this year we were not very much confident that we would be able to get possession of quite costly vessels, but now this problem is not there. On top of that, we should also look at the infrastructure, the rivers, the infrastructure, and the Volga and Caspian seaports need more infrastructure capacities. The Makhachkala seaport is just concrete structures and nothing is there. There is no equipment. There is yet another challenge. Some businesses and some regions are not ready to operate specific types of cargoes, for example, container cargoes. The Astrakhan region is at a zero level in terms of its ability to operate containers. And when we say let's construct 80 container carriers, well, what do we do with those if there is no seaport infrastructure and regions are not able to operate such cargo? So there is no reason. Once again, we should streamline our capacities and efforts. We can't do everything at once. We can't pursue two goals at once, because otherwise we are not going to hit any of them. And I would like to support the position of the Ministry of Industry and Commerce indeed, we should operate Russian-made vessels only. And this is what we are going to do as of 2026. However, what happens if Russian-made vessels won't be able to ensure to cover the entire demand? A similar story was in 2023. As of March 1, there was a demand for vessels of non-Russian made manufacture, but we just said we do not have such vessels. And that's good that the government listens to us. They are sensitized to that. So what we are lacking today in the northern basin, in our key seaports, is that we do not have gas carriers as well. But it's under construction. Yes, indeed, we need the entire infrastructure. We need the entire capacities all together. I would like to address Mr. Klavin. Is he here? He's president of the Russian Union of Employers of the Russian Sea Ferry Chamber. Well, I would like to talk about more earthly problems. I'm ready to talk about the questions that have already been tapped. This question is related to registration of Russian origin. We can do Russian registrations once we are competitive. And I would like to take the opportunity to extend my appreciation to the Ministry of Industry and Commerce and the Ministry of Transportation that we have adopted a set of laws to sustain shipbuilding and navigation. According to the estimates, if but not these two laws being enforced, today we would have failed to have 4.5 to 5 million tons of cargo. Would have been a deficit, a huge deficit in that. Therefore, I believe that we need specific legislation that would ensure competitiveness of Russian fleet. And today, we should eliminate any overlapping functions in terms of internal as well as international transportation. Sometimes we are indeed competitors to rail transportation, for example. I don't want to waste a lot of time and to tap into very complicated issues. But today, I believe that we need extra certification for ship owners, medical checkups and examinations. Again, so far this issue is not resolved. And the environmental checkups and examinations are still an unresolved issue. I would like to extend my gratitude to the federal government and the president for their efforts to ensure sustainability and to extend the time frame of the Law 305 in order to protect and sustain Russian ship industry. So far, we are having such conditions when the Russian vessel is not demanded on the international market. What's the most important for a vessel owner? It is the demand. It is the freight rate for the particular vessel. Therefore, in spite the solutions to develop shipbuilding, we should once again revamp and update Russian legislation to ensure successful operation of Russian vessels on the international and domestic market. Overall, today, we see that the fleet is highly required, both the river fleet and the sea fleet and the open water fleet. And therefore, we need to take the opportunity of the capacities of Russian shipbuilding industry that requires development. Thank you very much. Well, you see, whether we have more laws or we have less laws, approaches can be different. I'm just once again asking to demonstrate the QR code, and let's now have a look at what is the position of our audience. We are talking a lot about cargo turnover and what basin is going to have the utmost cargo turnover growth versus 2023. We have, as of Black Sea, Arctic, the Russian Far Sea, the Caspian Basin. Which one is going to see the utmost growth? Please do vote. And now I would like to give the floor to Andrei Buzinov, OSK. So what are the challenges to your group and our refocusing towards the friendly market? Well, I'm not going to build castles on air as well. What are we having now in terms of the challenges that we are facing? So 18 months back, what has changed? What are the new realities? Have you got used to that? You personally. You know, we get used to everything very quickly. What we need is that the industry gets used to that, and the people. This is my question. And what are the answers? I'm going to share them. Were we able to find solutions to the challenge? And initially, I would like to say about a very earthly challenge, but a very painful one that we managed to overcome. Colleagues do know that April, May last year, all our partners just left the vessels. And actually, our ships turned into a pumpkin, as in the Cinderella fairy tale. And it was a huge stress. I'm not going to tell you what solutions we were able to find or to conjure. The SMEs and private organizations were able to support and offer a hand of help. However, we were able to substitute us with tremendous experience. I'm not now looking into the energy industry, but here, not us, but the industry overall, the country overall. I expect that the companies out there would be able to transform the experiences into something more practical, and they would be able to develop new capacities. What is more important, the brains or the vessel? And in this respect, we were able to just increase our brain capacities in civil equipment. And I would like to draw some conclusions. We were able to step up to this challenge and sustain. Another challenge is not import substitution, it's rather just intensified import substitution. I personally took part in that, and as of February 20, Victor commissioned us to analyze the situation and to identify the equipment that we need as an emergency, because otherwise everything is going to go to halt down as early as tomorrow. So thank you so much that we are having this work done. Naturally, that's going to dry out the market. It's going to make the supply shrink. However, it is going to be our domestically manufactured equipment with all its advantages and flip sides. And I believe that the experience that we were able to gain would transform into something practical down the road. Well, if we draw out conclusions, I should say that it was done promptly and timely. And again, here, the issue is as follows, because this is actually it for the good news. The third part of challenges is Russia's pivot east in terms of equipment procurement. Well, 18 months down the road, I think that some colleagues are still waiting for everything to get back. My personal perception is that there are lots of organizations that want to get back. So how does the market work? How does the provision of equipment work? That entails high professional engineering, cooperation. This also entails high professional after-sales service, having such service centers 24/7 across all the country. And ultimately, if you want to work with OSK, you need certification, you need everything, right? So once again, if any of these three components fail, nothing goes well. So once again, we had to revamp our system. And once again, I'm calling upon our colleagues. We are going definitely make use of import substitution in terms of equipment. But you know what is the direction for the Ministry of Industry and Commerce, and where are the loopholes that make particular types of equipment absolutely non-reasonable to procure to Russia. Once again, I would like to reiterate, we need professional engineering, post-sales service, and localization of your counteragent from China or from Turkey. Currently, colleagues are just coming and they say, well, I can deliver that. Yeah, okay, well, you can deliver, but what else? That's not enough. Therefore, this challenge is highly crucial. There is a lot of chaos still going on. There are lots of open questions, and the main challenge that we are now discussing intensively is that the huge challenges we are facing, and it's clear that we must ensure the cargo flow that our clients have. But why did I say that the first voting was very much like our portfolio of clients? We do not have high tonnage transportations there. And high tonnage vessels, it looks like a public military procurement. Otherwise, there are no other options. So we are now resolving these practical tasks for Rosagro leasing and the grain carriers. Colleagues, I do not have any simple answers to that. But Sergei, for example, has 60 grain carriers. We are just working on that.
Give your comments into the mic. Yeah. Well, he asked about the dead weight. Oh, no. Grain carriers. And I'm wrapping up. And we are constantly in a loop of no decision making. We don't construct a large cargo shipyard because we need large cargo carriers right now, but we cannot give it right now because the shipyard doesn't exist. And this vicious circle is here. We need to go out of this vicious circle at some point of time. If United Shipbuilding Corporation cannot do that, who can do that? I'm not saying that we are not able and we won't solve this issue. We have new leadership, and with the financial resource that we have, and we have the support of the Ministry of Industry and Trade, when I talk about this vicious circle of non-decision making, I'm talking about U.S. Sea only. I'm talking about the instance. Either we need to build another warehouse at Sergei Tseluka's shipyard. We see from the balance of contracts that it has not been stricken yet. Let's take a look at the result. What area will see the biggest growth of goods turnover? 40% Far Eastern zone, 32% Arctic zone, and Caspian zone holds the third place. We have Mr. Zhusupov with us. Can I see you? Yeah. Could you please give the floor to the Executive Director of the Association of Commercial Seaports? Could you please comment on the results? Well, what are the priority projects for the new portual infrastructure? Thank you for providing me with this opportunity to comment. We discussed a lot about this topic, and it's a direct consequence of our export potential as far as the seaport infrastructure development is concerned. And the basis corresponds to main export routes that we think, as well as the development of transit potential along the corridor north-south and south-north, as well as the development of the Russian Far East seaports along the corridor of west-east. I want to say a couple of follow-up words about the challenges and the priorities. Portual industry is one of the industries that exemplifies the situation in the transport industry. During the modern Russian time, the production capacity grew by more than 4 times. If we talk in the comparison with the Soviet volumes, it grew by 2.5 times. How was it made? It was made by defining clear priorities at the governmental level. And as a consequence, all priorities were backed by clear rules and regulation from the customs standpoint, taxation standpoint, pricing standpoints, and added up together, the export companies defined their capabilities to develop vertically integrated system of the transport of their goods. Special sea terminals were created, supported by the Ministry of Transportation. A huge amount of private investment allowed to bring money. If we apply that to the money world, we don't have much time left. What risk? What are the major risks? Risks? Our priorities are blurred in terms of the extent they are backed by the possibilities of public regulation at the customs level, at the taxation level, and at the subventions level. One of the major issues for all transport is the heavy dependence from the import technological equipment and from import technologies. Our high-tech became our disadvantage, our high-tech character. Now we talk about this being a challenge, but if it's a challenge, let's define priorities. How can we loan money under 13%? In this case, the government should ensure subventions and interesting interest rates for specific industries in order to proceed to import substitution from the technical standpoint. All terminals, starting from cars, railroads, logistical hubs, airports, and of course seaports, all of them, 90%, are dependent from foreign technological equipment. All rolling stock is foreign. All rolling stock is foreign. We have certain alternatives or competitive suggestions here domestically as far as cranes are concerned. But all vehicles on wheels are international. So we need to subvention, we need to become customs, we need to bring taxes. Agriculture is a good example. It's a fourth export product. And in money, it overpasses the amount gained by military import, thanks to a clearly defined state policy in terms of fuel, in terms of subventions, in terms of exportations, when they cover partially the cost of transport. This is why it seems that federal executive branch should act together and create necessary priorities and conditions in order to have a breakthrough, in order to break this vicious cycle. We understand problems, but we don't have a take on it. Thank you. Thank you for your comment. You need to comment on that. Coming back about the increase of loads in the Far Eastern ports. The railroads at the Eastern Polygon are loaded to their maximum and cannot be increased. We won't have the same increase that it used to be in 2023, but we will keep handling more. And the leaders will be the northwestern ports, specifically the St. Petersburg seaport, because we have the low bases due to the previous periods. And we have Ust-Luga is boiling, absolutely. And we will grow here for sure. And the Black Sea will be better. Not the Russian Far East, that's for sure. You have the floor. Okay. I would like to talk a little bit about the technology, about it takes too long and it costs too much. The Ministry of Industry and Trade ordered us to develop and to prepare the concept to modernize existing facilities. But what does the word modernization mean? We have a lot of shipbuilders here. When we talk about modernization, it means that we need to change, to replace one working tool with another working tool. But in reality, modernization means our long-lasting problem of big blocks in construction of ships. Japan, China, and Korea show us their examples. They create new capacities, and I agree with Mr. Yevtukhov and Mr. Severilov. With existing capacities, we need one more big, well-equipped shipyard. As far as the modernization is concerned, when we talk about the large block structures, it is more cost efficient. The quicker we construct a ship, the less our production capacities are occupied under one project. Second, we were talking about ships, tankers, bulk carriers, gas carriers, but now shipbuilding industry doesn't have the information of how many ships are required and will be required, which means as for today, we need to understand and factories need to understand how many gas carriers we need, how many bucks could, and what about the portfolios, existing portfolios 5 years from now, minimum, as far as I understand. Andrei, am I getting it right, Mr. Severilov? We have a document that was created together with the Ministry of Industry, the strategy of the shipbuilding, and it has a portfolio, but it's a floating tool. Investment decisions change faster than included in this document. Now, I'm not saying that it's cast in stone. Of course, the Ministry of Defense, or rather the Ministry of Industry, has this portfolio. But I'm only talking from the factory's standpoint. The head of the factory should understand the portfolio and the series and the project. When you construct one or two ships of one kind, it's a big challenge for the company, for the factory. But if we see now that a shipyard will construct 20 gas carriers or 30 cargo carriers, it will be much easier. Next vessels will be more cost efficient and will meet economic realities. And wrapping up in the third priority, we need to create a bank of projects. In my experience, I faced the situation when every client comes with his or her own project and wants to receive exactly what he or she wants. But the experience of the Southern Korea and China shows that there is a bank of project. The client comes and pick a type of ship that he or she needs. And it helps a lot the shipbuilders. It helps us developing our industry. And I would like to thank once again Mr. Ruksha. For the very first time in 10 years, he praised the shipbuilders for their work. It's a common praise. No, not shipbuilders, but icebreaker builders. I need to be very precise here. Colleagues, time flies very fast. It's so good that the major exhibition, largest international maritime exhibition, brought us together. This dialogue was very sincere. At least I'm an outsider, but it was very interesting to listen to you, and which is good. We heard not only compliments, we had figures 10 and 90%. We heard miscontent. A vicious circle was mentioned, and you were ready to be on your knees. They will quote that. Journalists will quote that. Thank you very much once again. But now I would like, why it's important, and I'm deeply convinced. What is the purpose of this meeting or exhibition? No one can do something alone. We need to feel the shoulder of our colleague and do something all together. And based on that, give one advice that you're ready to give to your colleague. One advice to your colleagues in order to have a common approach. Those 2 hours, we use it in order to understand who's guilty. And the second question, what shall be done? So please, one sentence with the answer. Like, colleagues, we need continue this language. And I'm going to start from the geographical standpoint from Mr. Severilov.
Well, it's probably a joke, but we should have a good sleep and some nutritious food. We should see more of each other. Okay, great, fantastic. Let's see more of each other. A round of applause, please. Michael, your piece of advice? The mic, please. Well, yes, indeed, it's always not easy to provide recommendations. I believe that today we should consolidate and just do your duty, the duties identified by the President of the Russian Federation. Let's get consolidated and united. Right, fantastic. Andrei, please, let's give a round of applause. It's just not an advice, but it's rather a desire. We are ready to do, and we're ready to buy, and we're ready to work when we are presented with a very well-formulated task. Well, that's true about shipbuilding. Well, nothing to argue. Vyacheslav, your turn. Well, I would support both. We should see more each other, we should stay united, and we should cooperate better with the Ministry of Finance, with the central bank, because the rest is just crap. Thank you. Well, we got down to earthly matters. Well, my piece of advice would be to all the participants of this exhibition: work for your country, work for Russia's sovereignty, work for the future of our children, and everything's going to be fine. You'll make it. Igor, please. Thanks. Well, I believe that we should move on, stringently developing our Arctic competences. St. Petersburg has now such an Arctic competence center, and it fits for this role very well. Victor, your wrap-up and your piece of advice. Well, I think that it's very difficult to draw any conclusions for such a broad discussion, but someone has already said about food. But I've got some time still. My item of advice would be that we should be more active, and we should approach the Ministry of Trade and Industry and Trade with your pieces of advice, especially those who have directly to do something with shipbuilding, design, etc. Today, it is not the ministry that operates this industry, but a particular department. Right? Do you feel pity for that? No. There's nothing to feel pity for, because the economic environment has changed, our approach has transformed. And I'm just addressing the public corporations so as to be able to deliver on these issues, or larger companies like Zvezda or Akbars. However, to be able to deliver correct solutions, we should have preliminary discussion. I'm very much grateful to those who are very well cognizant of shipbuilding in the Russian Federation, those who are experts, because they know very well what we should build in order to achieve results, in order to be proactive, and I shouldn't just do any kind of bargaining here or engineering with prices or deadlines. So that's my piece of advice. Well, I believe it's kind of an invitation to cooperate with the Ministry of Industry and Trade. Once again, your moderator, Roman Gerasimov, would like you to give a round of applause to appreciate our participants. Let's see more of each other. Thank you.